Hello everyone, I am Siddharthan. Welcome to this complete Google Gemini AI course, where in this course we'll be using Google's latest LLM Gemini to build this interesting application where we have chatbot, image captioning system, text embeddings, and also a question answering model. So this is what we are going to build in this course. So we will dive deeper into each of these sections and we can see how we can use the different versions of the Gemini Pro model in order to build this application. So first we have a chatbot, as you can see here, where I've asked this question of why did Thanos do what he did. So if you have seen Avengers movie, you would probably know who Thanos is, and we have the question for this. So it kind of explains like what is the reason for Thanos in order to do that snap and all those things. And I also asked a tricky question of about was he right about it. So this is just not like a question answering system. So it also takes in the previous conversation it had and it kind of gives the response based on that. So here I didn't mention Thanos and all that. So this is just like a conversation. So it picks up like all the conversation that we have over here and it responds that no, Thanos was not right about it. So this is like the first page that we will build. And then we have this image captioning system where once you kind of upload an image, we will be using Google's Gemini Pro Vision model in order to get a caption for this image. So this is like a kind of a street with all the lights and so on, and it's kind of like written in Chinese over here. So I'll show you the original image later. So it says that it is a busy street in Hong Kong at night and so on. So this is like the second page of this application that we will be building. And then we have this text embeddings where if you write something or you put a paragraph over here, so it would give you the vector embeddings of that particular text. So here we are just displaying it, but there are like more applications to this, like document search and so on, that probably we will discuss in a later video. And then we have this ask me anything section where we can just ask a question and click this button to get a response for that. So this is the application that we are going to build with Python and Streamlit. And once you are kind of done with this video, you will be well versed in how you can use Gemini Pro API and all those things. So I'll start from scratch of how you can set up your environment in PyCharm and how you can get these API keys and build this application. Okay, so let's get started. So I would suggest you to use PyCharm or maybe a VS Code, but again, you can use other IDEs like Spider, but PyCharm is like better with the terminals and other options. Okay. So let's say that you have installed PyCharm. What you can do is open it and go to this new project section. So, I mean, if you have already worked on a project, so you would probably have the folder here, but if you are working or if you're opening it for the first time, you will see this option of new project. So you can click that and you need to kind of specify the folder on which you need to maintain this kind of like what we can say. So you can maintain this project and all the libraries specific for this particular project so that we can store in a particular folder. So here I'm choosing a folder called as complete Gemini AI course, and then you can name a project. Again, this would create like a subfolder for this. So I'll call this as Gemini AI complete course. So the reason we are kind of creating this is like, let's say you are working on another project and that needs like a different version of a Streamlit library, right? So let's say that this course requires a different version, right? So in order to segregate these, we can just create a virtual environment for individual projects, which is like a much standard way to do this. So I've given the location and also the subfolder for this, and you can give this custom environment. So you can use your Conda Python, but I would suggest you to use this custom environment. So for base Python, right, if you haven't installed it previously, it will kind of give you an option to download it. So you can download it, and for all the other projects that you are using, you can just choose this. So give this custom environment, generate new, and you also have this virtual env. So you can also choose other things, but I'm going with this virtual env, and base Python version is this, or you can kind of go with an updated version as well. And we have the location of this libraries as .venv. So I'm creating this project folder called as Gemini AI course, AI complete course. Okay, so you can see .venv. So this is where all my libraries will be installed. Now you can close this, and within this particular folder, right, you can go ahead and create like all the files that you need, and let's do that. So here you can just do a right click and create a new Python file. So let's call this main.py file. So this is again a standard naming convention of using this main.py as the name, and this is where we will build like all the Streamlit code and so on. And the other important thing that we would need is a requirements.txt file where we are going to specify all the Python libraries that we need. So I'll say requirements.txt, and here I'll give the latest version of all these libraries. So first is Google Generative AI. So we have this. So let's say that the version that we need is 0.4.0. So this is the latest version by the time that I'm doing this, but you can update it if you want. And then I want Pillow in order to do some image processing for our image captioning page. So here I'll call this as 10.2.0. We will also be discussing how we can deploy this on Streamlit Cloud so that you can share it as a public cap. So that is like another thing about this course. And you also have this Streamlit library that we need, which is equal to 1.31.1. And finally we need Streamlit option menu. So we need this in order to create those navigation pages for these different kind of applications. I'll give this 0.3.2. So these are the things that we need. So first you can create this requirements.txt, and I'll also give the GitHub repository for this code, so you can kind of refer that, so you can copy the files, get the files, and do the similar thing. So once we have this requirements, we need to install it. So for that you can give this terminal section that you have here and kind of install it. So here if you see, we are already in the project directory, which is Gemini AI complete course. You can just do a ls in order to list the files. So we have main.py file and requirements.txt file. So here I'm going to say pip install -r requirements.txt. So this will install all the libraries with those specific versions that we have mentioned over here. So I'll run this. So this will kind of install all the dependent libraries for these packages as well. So that is like the first step. So next step is getting the API key for our Google Gemini Pro model. Okay, so for that go to Google. So I'll close this particular app, the previous one that we have created. So go to Google and search Google AI Studio. So if you search it, you will see this page called as Google AI Studio Quick Start Gemini API. So this is where we are going to get our API keys. And now kind of Google give this LLMs, Gemini LLM for like 60 requests per minute. Like there is a cap for this free version, so we can kind of use it for like a development. And there are also other LLMs like Llama 2, which is like open source given by Meta, and of course we have GPT 4 and other GPT versions by OpenAI, right? So in this video, let's go with Gemini as we know. So go to this Google AI Studio Quick Start, and in the next navigation bar, left navigation bar, you will see this option called as get an API key. So this is where we have to go, but make sure that you are already signed in. So once you signed in, go to this get an API key, and here you will see this button called as get an API key. So click that, and here we can generate our API key, which is like a combination of alphanumeric letters and so on. So here you need to kind of accept this. If you don't want to receive anything, you can just leave these two checkboxes and just give continue. So you can give create API key, create API key in new project, like if you don't have any. So this is completely free, so you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so this is my API key, so I'll copy this. You will also see this below once you like kind of come back to this. So I'll close this, and now I'll create a file called as config.json. So we can kind of write this kind of hard code it in the code, but it is not a standard way. The more standard way is to put it in a .env file and load it with like this .env package, and the other way would be to put this in a configuration file. So I'll create a file called as config.json. Again, you can also try putting it in a .env file also, but I'm just going with this approach. So this I'm going to say it's basically a JSON file, right? Just like dictionaries in Python. So here you have to create a key value pair of, I'll call this as Google API key, put a colon and paste your key within quotes. Okay, so this is my API key. So save this, and in this kind of file we are going to load this API key and load the model that we have. So the different model that we have here are like, you can just go to this model section. So here go to this Gemini. So here we have like different models like Gemini Pro Vision, and Embeddings, and AQA. So this is like a question answering model and so on. So we have all these things. So we are going to try few of these models. So let's see how we can do that. So now I'll come back to my PyCharm. So main.py file is where we are going to create our Streamlit app. But I mean, we will also create like another file in order to load this Gemini models, get a response, so that our code is more modular. So I don't want to put like all this getting response, all these things in my main.py file. Only the code of my Streamlit app will be here, and all the other things will be in a separate file. Maybe I'll create another Python file and call this as Gemini utility. Okay, so in this main.py, the first things that we are going to do are just like build the outline for our Streamlit app. Okay, maybe I can close my API page. Okay, so here I'll say import. Let me close this. Streamlit as st. And there is another main thing of this working directory. So when you run a Streamlit app, right, with the Streamlit run command, the default working directory won't be this project directory. So it will be your user. Like, I mean, if you are in Windows, right, so you would have this users folder and you would have your name in a folder. So that will be the default working directory. So in our code, we need to specify this exact directory in order to access the files. Otherwise, it's going to throw you an error saying that the files are not present. So if you don't understand this, it's okay. I'll discuss this or I'll explain this to you in more detail once we face that issue. I'll also import OS library and I'll leave a space over here. So here we have this working directory, and this working directory is equal to os.path .dir name, which is the directory name. And here I'm going to say os.path dot absolute path, and within that I'll say file underscore. This is basically used in order to get the working directory here. So I can just kind of go here and copy the path, but I don't want that because I don't want to hard code this path, because if you run this file, right, in that case you need to replace this. So, but in case if you have this, right, this will automatically pick the path of this particular file. So that's what we are doing this. We are getting the absolute path of this main.py file here. So if you want, I can also print and show you this working directory. So no harm in that. I'll just run this. So you will see the output here. You can see, so this is like the path of this. So if you run this file, right, you will get the path of the directory that you are working on, so that we don't have to hard code anything. So that's about it. And then we can set the page configuration. So I'll say, can put this as setting up the page configuration. Okay, so here I'll say st dot set page config. So this is like what's the icon of the page should be, and like what's the logo should be, and so on. So we have this st dot set page config, and the first parameter I'm going to pass is page title. So let's call this as Gemini AI, and you can also put a page icon. For this page icon, like what I'll do is I can just go to emojis and like search some emojis that I want. I can just search emojipedia. So here you can like, I mean, kind of get emojis that you want. So I'm just going with the brain emoji. So search it. Right. So once you click this, you will see this copy. I mean, you don't have to do that. It's just like it's better if we have this icons and so on. So that's why I'm doing it. But these are like not that critical. And then you have this layout. In this layout, you can give either centered or so we have this centered option and wide option. So I'm going with this centered so that your app kind of looks compact. You can also like try wide as well. So these are the other things. Now let's build the sidebar for this. So for that I need to import okay, so I need to put this as from Streamlit option menu, import just option menu. Okay, so here I can say with st.sidebar. So we are creating like the sidebar with the Streamlit package, and within that I'm going to create the pages. So for this you can create something called a selected. So once the user has selected the page, we pass that information here and use this option menu that we have imported, and here say Gemini AI. This is like the name. So once this is complete, right, so you will see how this navigation pages will look like. This is the name of this like page, and you also have these page names that you have seen, right? So for that I'll say chatbot. Next, we have a image captioning thing, right? Image captioning. So this is the second page, and we have a embed text page. And finally, we just like have a question answering thing. So once you ask a single question, it will just give you like an answer for that. So I'll call that ask me anything. And finally, we have this menu icon to put an icon for all these pages. So first is like the icon for this page thing itself. So here I'll use this robot, and then we have the icons for the individual pages. So for this, basically we are using the bootstrap icons. So if you want to use a different icon, right, so you don't have to use this emoji PDF for this. Just go to bootstrap icons, and once you go here, if you scroll below, you have this search bar. So here you can like search something you want. So let's say that you search question, it will give you these question marks and so on. So you just need to copy the name. So for example, right here we have this patch question fill, you need to put that over here. So here I'm going to first use this uh first maybe I can go and search and show it to you. So I'll search chat. So I'm going to use this chat dots fill, right? So I'll copy this name, paste it over here in code. So this is my first pages icon, so this should be corresponding. And then next I'll get image captioning. So for that you can just search image, and you can just choose an appropriate icon for this. So here I'm going to go with an image fill thing. And okay, the other two icons are embed text and ask me anything. So here I'll just go ahead and search for text. I'm just going to use this T thing, but I think I've seen another one. uh, Okay, so I know the name for that. So that's text area. Again, you can use anything that you want. So I'll use this text area hyphen T. And finally, we have this for this, uh, ask me anything. I just want like a question mark. So for that, you can use a patch question fill. Okay, this is our sidebar. And by default, you can also mention like what's the page that should be kind of like selected. For that, use default index. So this default index, if you say 0, the first page will be selected. Okay, so now we can just check how our Streamlit app is looking like. So for that, if you run this, it kind of like won't show you the Streamlit app. So for that, you need to use this Streamlit run main.py. So make sure that you are in the project directory. So main.py file contains the code for our Streamlit app, and again just use the Streamlit run main.py. Run this. This will automatically open your browser, or you can just click the localhost URL that you get. So again, this is still in localhost, so that means you can't send this to anyone yet, but later we will deploy this. Okay, so here we have this Gemini AI. If you see this brain symbol, and we have this Gemini AI, right? So these two things are the ones that we are setting up in this page config thing, Gemini AI, this brain symbol and so on. And then you have this Gemini AI name and the robot icon, right? Menu icon. So that's what you are seeing here. So robot icon, Gemini AI, and you have this chatbot, image captioning, embed text, and ask me anything. So all these are present here. Yeah, and you also have the icons for that. So this is how you can do this. So now we won't see anything because we haven't configured to display anything. So now once the user has like clicked a specific page, we will write the code in order to show like the corresponding things of our application. So you can just press Control C in order to stop this Streamlit app. So I pressed Control C. So now if you refresh this, it won't be available. So I'll come back to my code, and I'll say we just like need few functions for this. But before this, I think we can go to the Gemini utility and kind of load these models. So for this, we need to import the libraries such as Google Generative AI and other things. So for this Gemini utility, and again import this OS. We'll also import JSON, and from will import. This is for image captioning. Okay, let's not do that. So first, let's just focus on the chatbot. So first, again, I'm going to kind of mention this working directory thing. Okay. This is again mainly used if you want to access the files that are being uploaded in Streamlit. So you need this working directory in that particular case. So the next thing is we need to load this API key and pass it to this Google Generative AI library. So I'll import that as well. So for that you can say import Google dot generative AI as Gen AI, and then we need to load this config.json. For that you can use JSON library. So I'll say config data. So this is the variable that I'm creating, and I'll say I think we can first mention the path of this file. So I'll say config file path. So this is equal to we can use like this working directory, which is the folder, and then put the name of this file. So for that you can just say put a f so that the string is substituted within this parenthesis, and put a slash and use this config.json. So I'll say config.json and put working directory. So if you want to look what this config path is looking like, so you can just say that print config file path. So it will say like all my complete kind of path and the name of the file. So this is what we are accessing. Now I'll just delete this, and this is basically a dictionary. I mean, we are going to load this JSON file into a dictionary, right? For that you can just say json.load open and say the path of the file. So just config file path. Now we can create a variable for this key. Let's call this like API key. Call this as loading the API key that we got. So here I'll copy this name itself. I mean, you can use a different name, but I'll just go with the same name. Google API key is equal to config data. This is again a dictionary, right? So once you do this and print this Google API key, this will show the API key that we have copied, which is this. Okay, so this is what we have to configure our Google Generative AI package with. So the next thing is create a comment and say that configuring Google dot generative AI with the API key. So then only you can access this. I'll say Gen AI, which is nothing but my Google dot generative AI. So Gen AI dot configure. We need to put our API key. So say API key is equal to Google API key, which we have loaded. Now we can go ahead and write some functions in order to load the model. So first function that we are going to use is it will just load the model and return it. So for that I'll create a function called dash load Gemini Pro model. So in order to do that, again, you can basically do all these things in this main.py, but I don't want to kind of keep my code too complicated. So I'm just like kind of making this code more modular so that like the things that we're getting from the Gemini model stays in this Gemini utility, and main.py just contains like the user interface for our application. So that's the main idea. So here I'll create a variable called as Gemini Pro model, which is equal to Gen AI dot, we need to use this generative model, and within the parenthesis give Gemini Pro. So this is how you can load the Gemini Pro model. Again, the same model that Bart, that kind of like powers Bart. Again, now they have changed the name, so we can just call this as Gemini. So you can return this Gemini Pro model. Okay, so this is the first step. So basically we need to load this model to this chatbot page that we have, and kind of send the question that the user asked and get the response from it, right? So that should happen when the user clicks the first page, which is chatbot. So that's the first step. So for that we need to import this particular function from this file. So in order to do that, you can import this as from Gemini utility. So all this main.py and Gemini utility are in the same directory, so that's not an issue. So import this from Gemini utility, import second. So I can say import load Gemini Pro model. So this is what we are going to use. And next I can say if chatbot, I mean if selected is equal to chatbot. This should kind of run the below code in order to give the page that has like this space for the user to type in the text and get a response. So that's the idea. But before that, we need to create another function for this. We'll call this as a define translate role for Streamlit. So again, I'll just explain you what's the purpose of this in a minute. Translate role for Streamlit, and here I'll say user role. If user role hmm, so if user role is equal to model, then we need to return assistant, else return user role. Okay, this is like not a complex thing. So basically, like we have a terminology for this LLM models in Gemini Pro in this Google library and Streamlit, but these terminologies are different. In order to map those terminologies, we are just using this function. If the user role is model, right? So let's say that this model is referred to as model in the Google's package. We are going to convert this name to assistant. So that Streamlit kind of adjust or it understand like what it means by this model. If it doesn't say model, then we are just fine with it, right? So this is like not a complex thing at all. So the purpose of this is, right, it's just like a function uh, translate role between Gemini Pro and Streamlit terminology. That is also, it's not complex at all. Okay, so this is something that we need. Now we have this page where we'll use this function and the load Gemini Pro model function that we add. So here I'll call this model is equal to load Gemini Pro model. So we are basically calling this function. So what this function does is it will call this Gen AI and load this Gemini Pro model, and understand that this will only work if you have configured it with this API key. So this will load this model and return this model, and that we are kind of storing this in the variable called as model. And now we are going to maintain a session for this. So Streamlit is basically like the default version that you work is like a stateless version. So if you kind of ask something, right, in the next question it kind of forgets everything, so the session kind of changes. So now what we are going to do is maintain the states so that the conversation that we have with the AI is kind of continuing. So like let's say that we have seen an example, right, where we asked what's the reason for Thanos doing what he did. So it gave an answer. Next, I asked, like, was he right about it? Now the model needs to kind of get this previous conversation. It kind of needs to read the previous conversation in order to answer this. But if you don't maintain the states, right, so the model won't get the previous conversation. So that's kind of like reset in Streamlit. So that, I mean, the reason, as I said, is like we are not maintaining the states. So we need to create these states or session for this in order to kind of pass this entire conversation and get an appropriate response. So for this, I'll say that initialize chat session in Streamlit. Again, this is not just for this LLM application. So this is like useful for any application that you build with Streamlit. It's always good to kind of maintain this states and session wherever it's required. Not already present. So if there is like some session maintained, it will use this. If not, it will like create a new session for that. So here I'll say if chat session, this is what we are creating. If chat session not in st.session state, yeah, this is like the Streamlit's internal function to do that. st.session state dot chat session is equal to model dot start chat. Here I'll pass history. No, this should be in parentheses. is equal to an empty list. Let's understand like what this particular thing means. So here within this Streamlit session state, we are creating this value pairs called as chat session. So this chat session maintains all the previous conversation, or basically the previous messages that we have sent to this Gemini, and also the response for that. So if chat session is not in Streamlit session state, that means like if this is not present in the session state, it will create this. That means like if you have already created that, if you already had a conversation with it will already have this chat session, so that's okay. So if it's not present, that means you are running the Streamlit app for the first time, so this will create a chat session. And within that chat session, st.session state, we are using this again the same thing, the chat session. To that we are adding this model dot start chat. Model is nothing but the Gemini Pro model that we have loaded. And within this model, so this Gemini API again also has this ability to look at the previous messages and get and give an appropriate response. That you can do with this start chat. Again, this is coming from the Gemini Pro model. So you need to pass the history. As we are just creating this chat session for the first time, we don't have any history. That means we don't have any previous messages, so that's why we are just passing a empty list to that. But if as it runs for the next iterations, right, this list will basically contains the previous messages and the response from the model. So that's like the basic idea for this. Next, I'll create the title for this Streamlit page title. So here I'll call this as st.title chatbot, but I just want to include like a robot symbol for this. So again, I'll go to this Emojipedia and search robot. Now I can click this and copy this and paste it. Again, you don't have to do it. So if you want, you can do, or use some other version, some other emojis as well, so it's not a problem. Next is we need to display like all the previous messages and so on. So this is to display the chat history. So for message in, I mean it may be a bit hard to understand this right now, but once we see this chatbot page, right, so once we see that particular output and the way it displays it would make like more sense to you. So don't worry about it if this is like not very clear to you right now, so you will eventually get this. So for message in st.session state dot chat session dot history, so here basically we are opening this history that we have saved in this chat session and displaying all the messages over here. For the first time it will just be empty, as we don't have any you know, we just don't have any conversation previously, so that's why it doesn't display anything. So we have this history colon. So for message in st.session state chat session dot history with st.chat message, this is again Streamlit way of displaying the message in a proper way, so that like you know, we have this proper messaging box and the response and so on. So chat message, we are going to use that translate role for Streamlit that we have created, and here I'll say message dot role and st dot markdown. So we are displaying all the results in markdown. We'll say message dot parts 0. I mean, these are standard things, you don't have to worry much about it. So text, so let's also discuss this a bit later as well, like what the purpose of this code exactly. Now the next part is, I mean, the user's text box in order to ask something. Okay, so here I'll say input field for user's message. Here user prompt is equal to st dot chat input. Here we can just use a placeholder like ask Gemini Pro. And if user has given something, right, so if user prompt, so when the user doesn't type anything, this will be none, so this if block won't be executed at all. So here I'll say st dot chat message user dot markdown. User prompt. So we are basically passing this user prompt. Let's say that they are asking what is machine learning. So we pass that to this chat message, which basically holds this, model dot start chat. So that's the purpose of this. So once we get a response, right? So that will be from, let's call this as Gemini response is equal to st dot session state dot chat session. Basically all these things are maintained in the chat session. If you're not maintaining these sessions, all this code will be like much simpler. So yeah, you can try with that version as well. Chat session dot send message user prompt. So this will pass this, this send message is again the one with the Gemini Pro. So this will pass this user prompt as a message to the model. We get the response and store this in the variable called as Gemini response. Now all we have to do is display it on the Streamlit web page. So this is for display Gemini Pro response. I'll call that as with st dot chat message. Call this as assistant and st dot markdown Gemini response dot text. Let's see what all these things mean. Okay, that is all for this. I mean, first page that we have. 1 second. Okay. I'm just trying to also make sure that the code is in like good standard. So we would kind of see this lines when it's not in this page standards. And another thing about standards is, right, so here if you see this, I have imported this OS library. So you can import all the pre-built libraries in the first few lines, give a space and kind of include like other libraries that you have installed, like let's say for example Streamlit and Streamlit option menu, and later again give a space, import the libraries and the functions that we have custom built. So this Gemini utility is what we have built, right? So that's what you can do first. In the first line you can kind of import all the inbuilt libraries that comes with Python, then import all the libraries that you have installed, and again the custom files that you have built. So that's like another tip that can be useful for you. So now again I'll go to this terminal. So we have built our first page and I'll say streamlit run main.py. Let's understand the code by just putting some messages. So here we have this image captioning doesn't have anything at all. Now we have this chatbot. So here you have this box, right, called as Ask Gemini Pro, and you have this send symbol and so on. So that's what we have built in this particular section. So we have this user prompt is equal to st.chat input. So this chat input basically creates this box and this particular symbol. Like that's what this chat input does. And we have mentioned this Ask Gemini Pro that's displayed over here. And now the user has to type something, right? So I'll ask the same question. Why did Thanos do what he did? So you're seeing this little symbol, right? Like with a human face kind of a thing. So for the chatbot's LLM's response, it kind of has this robots symbol. So this is also kind of configured in Streamlit. So you can again go through this answer. So Thanos a fictional character in MCU and so on. So we have this, right? So this is the response. Now I'll ask another question. Again, the same question of was he right about it? Was he right to do that snap and kill, let's say, I mean, like do what he did to, let's say, the half of the universe? Was he right about it? This will just like take a few seconds, so this model won't take like much time to load this. Like, yeah, this is like a more diplomatic and I would say like a better answer of whether Thanos was right about his action is a complex ethical question that has no easy answer and so on. So I would say this is a better answer, saying like rather like yes or no, because a LLM or a robot can't take a stand for these sensitive issues, right? So it tries to put all the arguments in place and it lets the user to make the decision for themselves, which is like I would say a better way for the robot to act. So that's about like what's the answer that we got. But coming back to the coding aspects of this, so here we kind of asked a question and then we have this, we asked a follow-up question. So here I didn't mention Thanos and other things, right? So basically this answer is related or linked to all the text that we had previously. So the model should kind of it shouldn't see this like as a separate question. So this question is linked to the previous question, just like the question that you would ask in chat gpt, right? So we don't want to ask unlinked question, or like it's not a conversation. Like let's say that you are asking why did Thanos do this particular question, it gives you an answer, and then you ask was he right about it, and now it doesn't know who you are talking about. It doesn't know you are talking about Thanos. So that's why we are maintaining all this chat history and passing this history to the model, so that it knows what the context is, so that we are maintaining a conversation and not a one time message. So now let's see how this thing is built. Okay, so first we have this kind of the chatbot is being selected, so then only like this page opens, and then you have this uh, st.title with chatbot and robot symbol. So we have that over here. Next thing is for yeah, this one, if chat session not in session state. So if I refresh this, right, so you won't see anything here. That means the session is empty. When you refresh this page, you won't see anything. At that time, this session state, this chat session is getting created in this st.session state, and it put all the history over here. So here it is a empty list because we don't have any conversation previously. Now for message in st.session state, right, so once you have a conversation or once you have sent a message, we are using a for loop to display all these messages. So if I ask another question, right, so this is like everything is happening newly, but what happens is it displays this messages using a for loop, and that's what we have over here. For message in st.session state chat session.st, the first message that we have is the one that we have over here, like the one that I asked, like the first question and the first response from the model, and then we have the second question, right? So all these are displayed using a for loop, but with the message roles and the markdown, right? So all these things, and then we have this user prompt. As I said, like the next part is like having this message input box where the user can ask something, and it can give a response for that. So this is how you can build a chatbot. So again, this may seem a bit complex, but once you try this code, right, it would make like more sense to you. So definitely try this out. I hope everyone is clear with the chatbot. So now in the next step, we can move to the next page, which is this image captioning system. The purpose of this particular image capturing page is, right, so we should have an upload box where the user can upload an image, and we call the Gemini Pro Vision model in order to understand the image and just give a caption for this, or basically narrate what that image is about. So that's what we are going to build. So before building the Streamlit page for that, let's come back to this Gemini utility and load the Gemini Pro Vision model, just like the way we loaded the Gemini Pro model. So for that, I can just create a comment here so that the code is more readable. So this is function to load Gemini Pro model for chatbot. Okay. Next is function for image captioning. Okay. So here I'm going to say define Gemini Pro Vision response. So it needs two things. One is the prompt, and the next one is text. So here we are just focused on a caption for this image, right? So we would just like hard code this particular prompt, which just says like write a small caption or a short caption for that. So I'll just say this as prompt comma image. So if you want, you can try something else, like you can explain, you can ask it like some other question instead of narrating it, right? But I just want a caption, so I will like hard code this prompt. But again, you can also let the user to write a prompt for that message, asking like where this particular image is, or what do you understand by it, or you can ask something. But I'm just interested in a caption, so I'm not going to do that. So I'll create a function. Now I'll load this model as Gemini Pro Vision model, just like the way we have loaded our Gemini Pro model. So I'll call this as Gemini Pro Vision model is equal to Gen AI dot generative model, the same thing, but in the parentheses you just need to mention Gemini Pro Vision, Gemini hyphen Pro hyphen Vision. So we need to put this in quotes, and then we have this response. So we need to pass the image as well as the prompt to the model to get a response. So we should say response is equal to Gemini Pro Vision model dot generate content This is the function to get the result, and within that we need to pass a list. Within this list we need to first have the prompt, and then we need to pass an image. You can basically pass an image that we have read from pillow. I'll show you. And then we have this result is equal to response.txt. So you would have like other things from this API response, but I just want to take like the text out of it, so you can just use this response.text. And finally I'll return this result. You can also kind of see what this response is, and you can basically do more things to it. I'm just like sticking to basic things. So we can test this function here itself. So I'll show you how you can do that. For this I have a test image. I'll open this. So I think this is like Chinese, because when I put this to the model, it says that this is a street in Hong Kong or something, right? So actually this image is also generated by uh, image generating model. I'm not sure if I generated with GPT-4, or you also have this Microsoft Designer that you can use. I don't remember it, but yeah, this is also generated by AI. So this is the image that we have. So I'm going to copy this and paste it in my default working directory for now, just to test this particular function. So I'm pasting it here. So I have this test image PNG. Now I'll load this. So we have this, we don't have pillow here. What we'll do is we will load the image in this file, but in order to demonstrate this, I'll show it to you this way. From pill import image, and here I'll say image is equal to image.open. This basically opens a image and load it with pillow library. So test image.png, and here I'll say I'll basically call this as I'll create a variable called as output, which is equal to Gemini Pro Vision response. Within that, pass the prompt. So let's say the prompt is write a short caption for this image. Now you need to pass the prompt as well as the image. So I'll say this as prompt comma image. Let's run this and print the output as well. Let's see what the model is saying about the image. Let's run this. Yeah, so the image model like just take like few more seconds compared to the Gemini Pro model, and it says like it's a busy street in Hong Kong. You can also say like write a short or brief caption, or you can say like explain what the image is. You can like ask something to it as well, so instead of a caption. So I'm just interested in building this captioning model, so I'm just sticking to this prompt. But again, as I said, you can hard code captions the prompts like this, or you can let the user to choose whatever they want to do with that particular image. So this is how this would work. I'll just delete this. We will kind of do this image loading part in the main.py file as we should. I'll delete this importing thing as well. Okay, let's come back here. So all this function is done. All it requires is like the prompt and the image, and then it passes it to the Gemini Pro Vision model, get the response from generate content, and we just return the result. So I'll come back to the main.py file. Let me just close this. So here first, when the user has selected this chatbot, it does this. Next thing is when they have selected image captioning, we need to do this, right? So for that, what you can do is create another if condition. So here I'll call this as image captioning page. If selected is equal to image captioning, you can just copy this one. If the user has selected the second page, the below code should get executed. First, let's create a title. So let's say st.title. Within that, we can call this as snap narrate. Just narrate what's present in a picture, or you can just name anything. For that, I'm going to use like a silly emoji. So I'll just search it as image. I'm going to use a camera emoji. Yeah, I'll use this. Okay, so we have the snap narrate. Put this within the if block, and we need to create a box where the user can upload the image. So for that, I'll create a variable called as uploaded image is equal to st.file upload. Okay, file uploaded. Here we can say some text like upload an image. And you can also mention like what are all the types that you accept. So let's say for example we accept only JPG, JPEG and PNG images. You can just mention that. Okay. Mr. Quote. Okay. The next thing is we are going to create a button. Hmm. Uh, if st.button, so st.button will create a button, and I'm going to name this button calling this like generate caption. So once this button is clicked, the below code should get executed, which is the image should be opened and displayed. So image is equal to image.open uploaded image. Oh, we have to import image, which is from pillow. I'll import this as from pill, import image. And I'll create two columns just to display the image and the caption like in separate spaces. So I'll say column 1 comma column 2 is equal to st dot columns. You can again create any number of columns that you want. So here I have two columns, 1 and 2, so that's why I'm mentioning 2 here. If you have three columns, mention 3. And in the first column, right, I need to display the image. So for that you can say with column 1. You can also resize the image depending upon your needs, so that if the user has kind of uploaded a larger image with a larger dimension, you can just resize it and fit it in your screen. So I'm going to call this as resized image is equal to image dot. So once you have loaded it in pillow, you can just use this resize, which is from pillow library resize. I'm going to go with 800 width and 500 height. Can use this, or again any dimension, proper dimension you want, you can play around with that. Let's see st dot image. So this st dot image, if you pass like a image loaded with pillow, I have to use this resized image. St dot image basically displays a pillow image and other images that you have loaded. And next is I'm going to pass this particular image and the prompt to my model. Let's say that default prompt. So here, as I said, I'm going to hard code my prompt here. So default prompt is equal to write a short caption for this image. Please try few other things as well with this, and getting the response from Gemini Pro Vision model. So I'll create a variable called as caption, which is equal to Gemini. Oh, we haven't imported this function, right? Which is Gemini Pro Vision response. So for that, what you can do is in this import, again, more standard way, if you want to import more thing is like import, put a, I mean, parenthesis here and do this. Import. First, we need load Gemini Pro model. And the next thing is like we need Gemini Pro Vision model, right? So this is how you can just create like a tuple kind of a thing, and you can import it so that your code looks more compact and so on. So there are like standards of how much space that you can cross. So you see this line, right? So you shouldn't cross this line. You won't get any errors, but these are just like some coding standards that you can follow, what we call as pip standard. So you can follow those things. So for this caption, I'll say get Gemini Pro Vision response. Here I have to pass two things, right? So one is the prompt, the next one is the image that has been loaded with, I mean below. You don't have to pass the resized image, that's okay, just pass this image. So we need two things, right? One is prompt and image, so that's what we are passing, and the result will be in caption. Now we need to display this. For this, I'll call this with column to st.info caption. So we are just putting it in a text box that will look in blue color if you use this text.info. So another interesting thing that if you see here, right, first we have this with column 1, and then I'm calling this with column 2 and caption, and then we are displaying it. The reason is you can get the caption as soon as the image is uploaded and later display the image and the caption. But the thing is, let's say the caption generation takes like 5 seconds or 10 seconds. So before that we can display the image. So that's why first I'm displaying the image over here and then getting the caption and then like displaying the caption here. So that's the idea. So I think this captioning model is ready. Let's again run the Streamlit run main.py. It's okay if you have this running as well. You can just refresh this in order to get the response. So first we have this chatbot, then you have this image captioning. So you have this upload an image, which we have over here. Upload an image thing, snap narrate, all these are here. So I'll browse this file that's present in this desktop, which is test image.png. Let me quickly check one thing. Yeah, I've deleted it. Right, so we have this test image.png and click this generate caption. So we are seeing like a smaller image of this, the resized one. Again, you can resize this to any shape that you want. This is like the first column. In the first section of this page we are seeing this, and the next section we are seeing this, a busy street in Hong Kong at night. The street is lined with tall buildings and so on. This basically is like narrating the image. So you can also adjust the prompt as you want, or what you can do is put a text box here where the user themselves can give a prompt for this. So this is how you can build a image captioning page. So these are the two things that we have worked on. So I hope that you are clear with the chatbot building and the image captioning model. So the next thing that we are going to work on is text embedding. So the other two things are like pretty simple things, so it's like not complex at all. So let's see how we can get the embeddings for this text and then like just build a question answering thing. Yeah, so I'll come back to my code. You can stop this Streamlit tab. I'll come back to the Gemini utility file. Next is we need to load this embeddings model, right? So this embedding model is basically you have to pass text and it gives you the embeddings as the result. Maybe you can mention this. So Gemini Pro takes in text and gives the output as text. Gemini Pro Vision is kind of a multimodal model. So it takes text as well as images, but it will give you the output as text. So similarly, embeddings will take the input as text and return embeddings. So here I'll say that function to get embeddings for text. I mean, these embeddings are mainly used in order to do a similarity search and all that. So again, it's really helpful when you are kind of doing a document search where we will first embed the content of the documents, and you also kind of have this query, you kind of convert that to embeddings as well. It's just like finding like related vectors or like vectors that are lying close to each other. Like, that's an interesting stuff. Maybe let's discuss about it like in a later video, as I said. So here I'll call this as define embedding model response. This we have to load it a bit differently. So I have this input text. You can see like all these model details in this Gemini AI Studio. So you would have this model section. You can check that over there. So input text where the user has kind of passed a text, right? So we will embed, or we'll basically return the embeddings for those text. So I'm calling this or creating this variable called as embedding model. So embedding model is equal to models slash embeddings 001. This is the name of the model, and let's say embedding. You can again, as I said, you can find these details in Google AI Studio Quick Start. So here we need to get the embedding output from this embedding model. So here say Gen AI, the same library that we have been using, dot embed content. So previously we have used Gen AI generative models, but now we are going to embed the content. The text content is basically the text that the user is kind of sending. And here I'll say model is equal to embedding model. Content is equal to input text. The user is the thing that the user is sending. And the next thing is task type. You can mention this as retrieval document. And finally you would have this list. So this will be in a dictionary, and we need to extract the content from it. Maybe I'll show you that dictionary as well. Return embedding. We can again as well test this. So we need to call this, right? So I'll create a variable called as output is equal to embedding model response. I'll just create a simple text like something like the same thing. Who is Thanos? and let's print this, and we can run this one. Okay, so this will take in the text and return the embedding. So it's in the form of a dictionary. So we have a key called as embedding and a list that has like all the embedding values, right? So again, this is crucial in doing those similarity search and other things, but let's discuss about that later. All I'm interested in is just to get this list. So for that, you can just say embedding, which is basically a dictionary, is equal to, or I can say that embedding list is equal to embedding, and within this square brackets you can mention the key, which is this one, right? Yeah, now this should just return embedding list, just that list, not the dictionary itself, and then later we can display it, right? So you can see the list now. So this is the function that we are going to use in our main.py file. So I'll just remove this. Now let's come back to main.py file and build this vector embedding page. Again, we have to do this if selected. Okay, let's call this text embedding page if selected is equal to embed text. In that case, we need to kind of give a title to this page, which is st.title, and within that you can say embed text. Again, I'm going to take like a quick emoji from here. I'll call this as letters or something. Okay, me go to this symbols maybe. I think I saw this ABCD thing that we can use here. This one. I'll copy this and paste it in the code. This would be the title, and let's give a text bar for the user where they can type in some statement or even the paragraphs to get the embeddings for this. So basically the ultimate goal of this is, right, so you can upload a document and just ask a query about it. So let's say that you upload a document, a PDF file about a particular study, and you want to kind of ask a question that's present in that particular PDF. So you kind of ask that question and upload that PDF. So both these question and the document will be converted into embeddings, and we kind of look for a similarity search, do a similarity search with this embeddings to get a proper answer from this document. So that's the ultimate goal, but we're just going to display the embeddings for now. So here I'll say text to enter the prompt, or you can just say like input text box. Create something like input text is equal to st.text area. So this will just create like a larger text box where the user can type in something. I'll the label. So label, you can just have it like as an empty thing. So we don't have to put anything here. And placeholder, you can just display something like enter the text to get embeddings. Okay. So now we can create a button just like the way that we did before. st.button. We'll call this as get embeddings. Once this has been clicked, right, so we can call the model. So response is equal to embedding model response. Oh, I think we haven't loaded it. I think. Yeah. So put a comma here and load it from this Gemini utility, embedding model response. And within that, we just need to pass the input text, right? So input text. And then we need to display it with st dot markdown response. Okay, so basically what happens is the user types in some text, and then once the button is clicked, we call this embedding model thing, where we pass this text to this model of embedding not one, and then we just get the embedding list out of that and then display it with markdown. So this is how the third page works. So I'll save this. Let's run the Streamlit app again. We can see it here. Okay, so chatbot is done, image captioning is also done, and then we have this embed text where I just ask something. Let me put this as machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence, and just say get embeddings. Right, so this is the embedding list that we use. Again, as I said, this is like a part of the problem. Later, let's see how we can get like or build like interesting use case around this. So this is how you can embed the text. So here the input is text, and the output that you basically get is a embedding list. So this is how you can do this. I'll just mm, put a capital G over here. So if you make any changes to the Streamlit app, right, you don't have to stop it and run it again. Sometimes it may not work, but in most cases you just have to do a refresh. So now you see this G in lowercase, right? So I'll refresh this, and now if you go here, it will be kind of adjusted. You can just refresh this page, but I'll just stop this app for now and just build like the last page, which is just like ask a question and get a response. So nothing complex. It's just like the chatbot, but we are not going to maintain the conversation. I'm just going to give you a simple version of that. So let's see. I mean, it's just like a simple thing. So I'll come back to my Gemini utility. Here I'll create another function. Let's call this as function to get a response from Gemini Pro LLM. Okay, so let's call this as define Gemini Pro response, and we need to give the users prompt, like the prompt that they are kind of typing in. Here we need to load the model again. I think we can use like the same thing that we have over here. So here we are returning the model itself because we need it for maintaining this chat history and so on. Here I'm loading this with the same name, Gemini Pro model, and then the response is equal to Gemini Pro model dot generate content. Same thing that we have used, generate content. Within that, pass the prompt that the user has sent. That is all. And then result is equal to response dot txt text, and then return result. Okay, that is all. It's like that simple. Let's test this as well. I'll this as output is equal to Gemini Pro response. Within that, I'll give a prompt of what is machine learning. Okay, and let's print this output. Hmm. So this would explain like about machine learning in a detailed way, right? So you are seeing this, right? Machine learning is a subfield of artificial intelligence, and all those things. So we have the stars and so on in order to make these particular line more bold and so on, right? In order to incorporate all this, we are using Streamlit st.markdown. So it would capture like all these bold styles and so on. So that's the purpose we are using st.markdown. So let's see how we can do that in this main.py file. So these are the functions that we are going to build, and all these are done. And finally, let's build our final page, the fourth page, which is this yeah, ask a question thing, right? Ask me a question. Let me just put this as question answering page or something like that. If selected is equal to, so you have to put double equal to, come back to the top, copy this, ask me anything. Again, as I said, this is like a shorter version of the chatbot that we have built earlier. So ask me anything is selected, st.title. I'm going to say that ask me a question. So this is the title of the page. put this in small. I'm going to copy a question mark emoji. Yeah, so put this as question, copy this red question mark and paste it here. Again, this is the name of the title of the page. This is like what's the user has kind of selected from the left navigation bar, and ask me a question. So once they have asked a question, so text box to enter prompt by the user. So let's call this as same user prompt is equal to st dot text area. They can just like ask anything. Again, you can use label is equal to just an empty null string, and placeholder is equal to same thing, ask me anything. Or you can even put ask Gemini Pro, same thing that we have there, just 3 dots. So now let's have a button. If st dot button, so once this button is clicked, we will call this model. Let's call this as get response, or you can just get an answer. Here we would call the model, so response is equal to we need to import it again, Gemini utility. We need to import this Gemini Pro response function. I'll do that over here, Gemini Pro response. And within that, we just need to pass the user prompt, and then later display it with markdown, st dot markdown, and put your response over here. So that is all. So this is our final Streamlit app. Let's make sure that this is working. I need to run it again. Okay, st dot markdown response. And I'll come back to my terminal, clear all these things. So you would just get some warnings because of that label, but that's fine, no issues. This would open my page. So I've completed my chatbot, image captioning, embed text. Finally, my ask me anything. I'll just ask like what is machine learning. You can also display it with st.info and other things, but for this markdown is better to capture like all those styles and so on. Let's wait for this to give an answer. Right, so you have this definitions of machine learning in bold, and all the response for that, right? So this is how you can use this Gemini model in order to build this chatbot, image captioning, embed text, and ask me anything. And again, we are at the last part of this video of deploying this as a public app. So this is still in a local host server, right? So you can't share this to anyone. So let's see how we can deploy this in Streamlit cloud so that you can share this app to anyone for absolutely free of cost. So the other things that you can do is you can just build chatbot that kind of sends you some codes as well, right? So I think I can try it with this thing as well. Write a Python code to build a convolutional neural network. I think sometimes it may fail, but let's see if this is working. I'm not exactly sure. Write a Python code to build a convolutional neural network. Let's see. So later, let's see how we can deploy this on Streamlit Cloud in this video itself. So I hope that this gives a proper response. Not bad. So we have a Python code, say it's import TensorFlow, TF, and all those things. So I'm not sure how much of this is right, but I can see like it's okay. So you can try doing that, or you can also get a Python code and you can execute in the backend and display the result to the user. You can kind of do that as well. Just create like, let's say a coding buddy or something. You can create another page and do this. So this is how you can do this. Now let's come back to our Streamlit deployment part. So for this, you need to go to this share.streamlit.io. Before that, you need to put all these code in a GitHub repository, and Streamlit Cloud expects your repository to be public. But I think they allow you to have to kind of deploy one or two applications in your private repository, but you can look that up. So here I've added like all these files in a GitHub repository, which is public. You need to sign up with that same GitHub account to your Streamlit thing as well. Just go to Google and search share.streamlit.io. So I'm already signed in, so this would automatically log me in. If not, you can just like create an account again, as I said, like the same GitHub account. I mean, GitHub is must, so it takes all the code from that, so it's like a must, so you can do that. So once you have connected it, right, so your GitHub account will be connected. So here you will see this new app within the share.streamlit.io. So click this new app. So again, as I said, your repository is already linked. Oh, seems like it's not linked it. Okay, it's asking for authentication. Yeah, so it's active now. So now if you click this, it will automatically pick up all the public repository, basically all the repositories you have over here. Here I have this Gemini AI course prep, right? So that's what you will see here. If I click here, it says my username and Gemini AI course prep. Select this, mention the branch. Here I just have main branch. I don't have any development other branches. So you can mention that. So it's a main branch, and name of the Streamlit app. So it's Streamlit app.py, but in our case it's main.py, right? So just like rename this to main.py. And you can also give like a custom name for this. I'll call this as Gemini AI application. You can create any name if you want. So this domain is available. So the final URL will be Gemini AI application.streamlit app. So let's give this deploy. This would just take like a few minutes, like a couple minutes, shouldn't take more time. Let's also test and see if this is working in cloud as well, so that like you can just share this URL to your friends or someone, and they can use it as well. Like I would suggest you, like if you are going to an interview or something, or if you want to present this in LinkedIn or something, you can just deploy this. It's absolutely free of cost, so they will turn off your app if you're not frequently accessing it. But yeah, you can share this to others so that they can experience like what you have built. So you can also click this manage app to see like the process that's going on. So here basically your requirements.txt is getting installed. So you need like all these files here. So you need this config.json, which as your Google API key, Gemini utility, main.py file, requirements.txt, and finally your test image is not required. This is like the sample image that I had, so that's not required. So all the dependencies are getting installed. Let's wait for it to get completed. Okay, so we have our application. So here you have your chatbot, image captioning, embed text, and ask me anything. So I'll just test if everything works. Again, I'll ask the same question of why did Thanos do what he did. Let's see. I mean, this is just to make sure that everything is fine and working normal. So if there are any issues, you can kind of see this in the manage app thing itself. Okay, you would see this warnings again. As I said, that's okay. The label thing, if you want, you can put something in the labels. So Thanos the Mad Titan, blah blah blah, and so on. So we are getting a response. I'll also upload my image and check this. So browse your files. I have this in my desktop. So yeah, this test image.png. Try with some other different images as well. Generate caption. So we have displayed it, so it's running. And then we would have our caption over here, a photo of a busy street in Hong Kong, and then we have this embed text. We'll ask machine learning, just put something like machine learning course, get response. We have our embeddings, and finally ask me anything. I'll just ask what is machine learning, get a response. So seems like everything is working, and this is how you can build your application. So make sure that you are trying this at least once, so you will like get a good amount of learning. And again, this is just like the iceberg, tip of the iceberg. You can like try more complex and advanced application and interesting use cases as well. Let me know if you have worked on something that you would like to share, so you can kind of tag me in LinkedIn. So I'm active in LinkedIn, you can do that. Okay, so I hope that everyone is clear with all things that we have done, and this is like helpful to you. So that's it from my side, and I'll see you in the next upload. Thanks for watching.